Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back from the theater from seeing Shang-Chi or Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Uh Off the bat, I just want to let you guys know I did enjoy the hell out of this movie. It's an incredible film. Uh uh like primarily Asian uh Asian cast. You know, walking in this just thinking it's like same way because some people, because it's Labor Day weekend, so a week, but last week, or at least what last weekend, uh, they did the whole premiere thing, uh, for this movie, and it's like the fervor, from like the Asian community is like it's like so high. It's like you know, and I understand because same way where like because how Black Panther was to the black community. I understand, the Asian community's feeling with Shang-Chi because not only is great, but it's just the fact that it's well choreographed, you know, uh, well shot. The direction was uh great. CGI wasn't terrible, and like the actors like were all top notch, man. And the man who is playing Shang-Chi, Shimu Lu, I believe, yeah, because I don't want to butcher anybody's name. I do know Aquafina. I love freaking Aquafina. She is amazing, hilarious. It's directed by uh, Destin Daniel Creighton. Uh, he usually been doing like small ish films before this one. This is not too dissimilar to the director they have for Eternals, who has done like indie movie kind of stuff before. Uh, uh, yeah, I had it right. Simu Liu, who is Shang-Chi, Aquafina is Katie, uh, Mingyar Zhang, Zhu Xialing, who plays Shang-Chi's sister. I need to start reading. I mean, I read bits and pieces of like because a few months ago they started, or at least earlier this year they started, um, re I want to say rebooting, or it's like kind of like because after like MCU starting to do pulling like new, I want to say new characters, but because Shang-Chi has been in the comics for a long time, yeah, probably about as long as Iron Fist, because it was around the '70s when like martial arts movies were all the rage. So it's kind of like it was around that same time frame. Uh, I need to start reading up some more. I read a little bit since I can read it all in trade. Eventually, I will do like a comic book review for a Shang-Chi story and put on a channel because you since the whole trade is complete by this point, it's only like, I think 6 issues. At some point, I want to put up on the channel, and same thing with like Eternals. Eventually, I think I'm digging Shang-Chi stuff more so than Eternals, even though like there's been Eternal stories that I've been reading to as preparation because I know of them, in preparation to the movie. But like the thing is, I know of them, but it's not like something like I was like digging deep, uh, in the same way as like all these staple of Marvel characters like Iron Man, Captain America, Spider Man, and Thor. Uh, uh, not so much with Guardians of the Galaxy because I just like Guardians is fine. I just don't read Guardians of the Galaxy like that, even though they even got popular. Like I still like it's not my cup of tea. But you never know. Eventually, Uh, Fala Shang, who plays Ying Li, Shang-Chi's mother. Uh, uh, Tony Long, Zhu Wen Yu, who plays Zhu Wen Yu, aka the Mandarin. Uh, uh, Michelle Yeoh, who plays Ying Nan, the sister to, uh, or this Shang-Chi's aunt. Benedict Wong, who has uh, uh, cameos in here. And then, surprisingly, because I never know this dude's name, Florian Montague, who plays Razor Fist, who also was the in Creed 2, the son of Ivan Drago. I forgot that was that dude because like I haven't seen Creed 2, uh, you know, uh, yet, but I did not know that was him because he's like a big guy. This dude is huge. Uh, but anyway, uh, there's certain parts of this I forget. I think a lot of people are in agreement. It's like it's so well shot. If it wasn't for certain points of dialogue to remind you you're in the MCU, you forget you're in the MCU. If a director manages that, they work their ass off. Because like you can just focus on the personal story rather than like an overall thing. But it starts out with like Shang-Chi, and well, you get like a narration about like the Mandarin, the real Mandarin. He's 1,000 years old. Man found these 10 rings, and if you read any Iron Man comics with the Mandarin in it, the rings aren't in the comics. Is actual rings that goes on your finger, that each do a different thing to give the Mandarin his powers in the comics. Like like concussion blasts, ice beams, fire, teleportation. You can look it up. These 10 rings in the comics does 10 different things, but they're alien tech that he stole from pretty sure it's like a ship, or not necessarily like a corpse or anything like that, but it's like a ship, like from this alien dragon. That's part. If you remember in the comics about this dragon bad guy called Fing Fang Foom, that race had these these rings that the Mandarin stole that give him his power. They kind of like in the movie they kind of like did their own spin on it, because they have to do a little touch-ups, and I think it's necessary touch-ups too at that, because in the comics of the days of old, Shang-Chi's father was actually like Fu Manchu, a very racist depiction. It's one of those racist caricatures of an Asian individual. So they, not only for this movie, but in recent soft reboot of the Shang-Chi's comics, they soft rebooted to the point where it's like the Mandarin is the father of Shang-Chi. And I was hesitant at first because since RDJ is not playing Iron Man anymore, and Iron Man is the Mandarin's it's like the Mandarin is the Joker to Iron Man's Batman. And the fact that I kind of still felt salty about the whole situation with Iron Man 3. They kind of touch on that here, like, giving some acknowledgement, because that was kind of slight, because kind of, like, uh, turn, like, he was like the first Quicksilver boner joke before anything else, because you kind of like played him as a joke. It's like, and swapped him out with Ben Kingsley and the other guy. In like, it was touched on in this, when like they meet up with the Mandarin. He's like, I going by many names, and he goes off a list of names that he has known from in the comics, and like he's pointing out with a joke the name of the Mandarin is, because it's like an orange or something like that, and they uh uh you know these false terrorists used it to like literally cripple America, kind of situation. So it's like, and that's how he had to deal with that. But these rings in the movie gave him immortality, and it's, he used it to like conquer a lot of took part in like different, conquering different like territories throughout the centuries, and influenced certain parts in wars like American Revolution, I think, and World War II, I think. It was either one or two. I'm pretty sure it's like one. It was like 1940 something. Uh, but you can see like he had like influence up until the point of the late mid 90s. Uh, uh, the Mandarin went to Tao Lao, because he found out with some research about some mystical power, because he wants like power. He's the only thing that he has in his life. He's like kind of empty, because he's accomplished so much throughout the 1,000 years, and it's like it's just another thing town. So once he get there, he meets uh Yingli, who meets Yingli, and she completely, with her skills, she was able to like completely, uh, put him on his ass, given the fact that she was the first person to actually lay him out by herself, where armies prior to that could not do. And he was like awestruck by her and smitten, and the fact that they both end up falling in love. He he in part like he chose like to give up using the rings and live a life of like a peaceful life with her, while she gave her living in that a village, and gave up her powers, and so that way they can live a quiet life together. They end up having you know Shang-Chi and his sister Xialing. So of course, like, while it's kind of giving me like vibes of Castlevania, the Netflix show, where it's like it's similar thing. It was like the guy who was a conqueror for the large part decide to like turn away from that kind of life, live a peaceful life with someone he cares deeply for more than anybody else. And as soon as he like steps away from his home for a while, his past comes back. Some people looking for revenge. Forgot what his gang his name, like Iron Bear or something like that, and Iron something. Uh, and the mother turned her children away. Well, she dealt with all of them. She beat all of them. At least, looks like she, beat like damn near all of them, because there's like a lot of people there. But she ended up dying from wounds while defending herself. And then as soon as Manor comes home, sees all that what happened, you know, he buries her and what have you. And instead of like comforting his being there for his children, comforting them and stuff like that, he takes his son. I guess like to like whoever it's like a little like little area where they gamble or what have you. Uh, it's not like a casino. It's like one of those like little hidey hole kind of things. And like you look at the son and like the son's like just nods like yeah they were there. And so it's like a brilliantly shot where it's like you do through the you at first see the kid and like it slowly pans over to his point of view, and you see the father just with his rings on wreaking havoc in that entire establishment and just killing like people at that table and anybody stepping in, and because he was looking for the boss. And the kid was pretty much traumatized and just watching his father just massacre these group of men by himself with these rings, which they have no defense against. They shooting and he's blocking them. He's whipping around. He's caving in their chests and heads or whatever like that. And he's going to his son and he's telling him like, blood has to be paid in blood. So he then proceeds to start training his son to be, a fighter and an assassin. Of course, not his daughter, and she has her own, issues with her father. The fact that he, stopped paying attention to her, at least somewhat, because, according to her, she reminded him of their mother, so he couldn't even stand looking at her. So he didn't give her the time of day. He just put all his focus into Shang-Chi, raising him to be a warrior. And she wasn't even allowed to train. She had to observe Shang-Chi and others in order to self teach herself in the ways of fighting. And she uses like these rope dart. And I'm thinking to myself like, man, this is like fucking Mortal Kombat. She's like doing a whole scorpion stuff. And there's a lot of little bits and pieces of like showing like because if you grow up watching a fair bit of martial arts movies, you'll pick up subtle references to bits and pieces of certain movies, like certain Jackie Chan movies, like Rush Hour. There's like a fight scene on a scaffolding on the side of the building that reminds a lot of people about Rush Hour 2, that scene with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. The rope dart thing reminds me of Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. There's times when you have like Shang-Chi saying like, in Chinese, I don't want no trouble. And you hear that a lot in a lot of Jackie Chan films. And it's like, like Rumble in the Bronx and stuff like that. So, there's some bit of honor to past, Chinese, martial arts films that we enjoyed growing up since the 70s up until this point. This is like a culmination or a love letter to all of that. It's like I said, it's all this honor and the culture of the Chinese or at least Asian community in general. There's like a lot of like representation and just like honoring what came before, and I think that's so fucking cool. Uh, so when Shang-Chi became 14, he was tasked to go kill the man who killed his mother. And of course, like as he told like his friend Katie, played by Aquafina, like at first he's telling like I didn't really do it, I just ran away. But then he let her again, told her like the complete truth, like, yeah, I did. Then I ran away. Is it something like was he doesn't have the kind of like that thing his father has inside him, where it's like just like yeah, that no hesitation of killing enemies. Whereas like Shang-Chi, he will. I imagine Shang-Chi will push come to shove, will do it, but only like a last resort kind of method. But it's not like something he would outright just do, kind of situation. Uh, you fast forward when like present day when he's like living life in San Francisco. Uh, After he ran away, he works as a valet with Aquafina, and it's a nice little seeing these two like because as I was because you see this because when I reviewed Jackie Chan Adventures, all of the seasons, you can check that out on my channel. Uh, you know, because it's something I never even brought up that this movie kind of brought to light. Because uh, I'm not Chinese, obviously, but you get to see like a window to their world as far as like growing up in like Chinese uh, or like a Chinatown setting in America. In this case, it's San Francisco, but each city has their own Chinatown. But you see the window into their lives, growing up, you know, and speaking Mandarin. And it's like one moment where like the Mandarin asks Katie is like, you know, like American. He doesn't even acknowledge her, like right away as like, you know, uh, their brethren or sister in this case. He's like, he's not. She's not like full Chinese. What's your Chinese name? Uh, I forgot what she says, like Wen or Min or Mei Mei, something like that. And he goes on to do because this is not like typically in movies like this where it's like a evil father fighting the son trying to like it's like paint by numbers kind of thing, but you know this one actually has layers to it, and he's going off talking about how like it's our names that connects us to our ancestors and reminds us where we come from. And it's like because it's a lot of that. It's a lot of that in every culture. It's like names matter. It connects us to our ancestry. The black community have that, especially from Africa. Africans, especially the fact that it connects you to the roots is what could with those that have been utterly destroyed by colonizers. But then the same thing with like Native Americans, uh, Asian community, obviously. Uh, Same thing with like the Hindu people, like any kind of like minority that's ravaged by colonizers and stuff like that. It kind of like you know uh, uh, if kind of like what's the word kind of like it motivates us more so to like stick together and like connect to our roots as much as possible because it shows like how easily it could be taken away from us. So it's like, what's your Chinese name? And it's the dialogue like that I enjoyed. Like it's like he's more layers to him. It's like your name matters. And uh so you see like Aquafina's family life or Katie's family life as they sit around a table, and it's like in this movie it's kind of like the first Blade movie. In this movie, obviously we expect Aquafina's character to be like the love interest to Shang-Chi, but it it touches on that, but it doesn't like there's no you know big kiss at the end kind of situation. They're just like they're close, and it's like it's just it's hinted it's going to be done that way. The way they hold hands, or they like like snuggle against each other kind of situation, but it's not like flat out, addressed. Obviously, in Shang-Chi 2, it's probably gonna be explored, but uh, yeah.
Here, I'll put on your bed.
Sorry about that. Uh, yeah, and it's like, God, as the film is just, I mean, those kind of discussions was just like, it was like, because I don't, because the closest I ever been so far as like, like seeing in the eyes of like the Asian community and like the life kind of live kind of POV is like my ex was, half Filipino. Now it's not the same thing, obviously, but it's just that I got a peek into like that kind of thing. They didn't have like all these like uh you know artifacts or anything like that. They just live normal lives. They're just normal people like us, but like everybody else. But it's just that that's probably like the closest I ever even gone to that. But this movie can actually hit home to a lot of people that's not from that community. It's like these are just like everybody. These people are just like everybody else. They love their roots. You know, they talk about like, oh, when you, because there's a grandmother that's like, talking to Shang-Chi, is like, when you two gonna get married? And it's like, that kind of stuff. And it's like, you know, uh, it was touched on about how, because when they talking with their friends at this bar, it's like, because they talking about how like they used to like, uh, steal a car and go joyriding and stuff like that. And like the girl that they talking to, speaking with like her boyfriend, telling him like this story, and she's going off like, I eventually grow up. You two are still doing the exact same thing, even though both of you are more, like are smart, capable people, and yet you choose to like not grow out of that child mentality. Not that they act like children, but it's just like they fused, because like Aquafina's like has a small arc, whereas like, uh, she's kind of afraid to take chances because she's afraid to like. It's that typical story. Is like you don't take chances. Uh, if you don't take a chance, then you don't have to worry about like, uh, suffering disappointment. But you know, you gotta learn to take that risk kind of situation. And it's, I feel it's a little badass moment using that like a bow and arrow later in the climax. But then like there's an awesome scene on a bus. You see it in the trailers a lot because they don't show much in trailers, which I appreciate. But in the trailer, it's like you see like Shang-Chi fighting all these goons and Drago's son raise a fist, and it's like this awesome moment, just like Shang-Chi just like moving around all of the poles and just like kicking people out the windows. Excuse me. And it's just like nonstop. Uh, and then of course, there was after his necklace, which was left because there's two necklaces, which is like a small MacGuffin, uh, left by their late mother. One given to the daughter, one to the son, and that's what they were after. And that's why all of a sudden Shang-Chi's father is looking for them. So they go to Shanghai, where they find out that the daughter is Zheng Li is running like this kind of fight club, and that's where we see like Wong fight Abomination, and this is like comic book accurate Abomination with like the fin ears, and everything like that. And it's like he's still locked out because it's like a portal to this like prison area or something like that. And I'm thinking, is this like his rec time or something? It's like what, you know, uh, like why is it like he's just like out right now just to fight in like a cage fight, and Wong's talking to him in a way it's like you know it's like friendly or something like that. It's like it's not explored. I'm pretty sure maybe Abomination will come back for like the She-Hulk Hulk show, or in like Thunderbolts movie that might be coming out with Val sending recruiting, you know, Yelena and U.S. agent and so forth. So she might end up like recruiting like an Abomination and need like a Hulk on the team, and might maybe recruit uh Baron Mordo because he haven't came back yet. He might come back in Doctor Strange too, but that'll be interesting to see. Like, they need a magic guy on the team. Since you got Doctor Strange, we need a magic guy on our team. So we getting she might end up recruiting uh Baron Mordo on the team. It'd be like their own little magic powerhouse. That'll be cool. Uh, of course, you know, Mandarin's team, his forces come crashing down to this place. Not only take the daughter's necklace, but they, take Shang-Chi, the sister, Katie, to their this little, hideaway facility, and and then he goes over and show, tell them like, I'm hearing your mother, she's alive, and she's trapped in a prison by her own people because they didn't like me, and I want to get back to that Tao Lao to release her, and I need you guys with me. And of course, they wasn't agreeing with, like, first and foremost, they didn't believe like he's actually hearing their mother's voice. Secondly, they didn't like the idea of the fact that he would willingly burn down the entire sacred place, their mother's home, and the people in it, for their mother's sake, But then they end up getting locked up. They meet Kevin Flattery, what's his name? Or Ben Kingsley's character, Trevor Slattery. And I would say Flattery. And he's pretty much there as like the Mandarin's court jester now, instead of being flat out executed for taking on the Mandarin name. He's just there for their like as the court jester in prison. So they end up seeing this like little creature. Forgot what his name. It's kind of like a faceless, or like I said, headless pig, furry pig thing with wings. It's some kind of creature I'd never seen before. I thought it was made up, but once they go to Tao Lao together, and it's like taking another thing. And as soon as I saw this, I immediately thought, oh, they really like. Well, it's not purposely, but it's like I immediately get to Pokemon, because a lot of creatures here from like mythological Chinese history, or at least in general, because there's like phoenixes flying in the air. There's nine-tailed foxes. And I'm thinking like, not only thinking about Naruto, but I'm also thinking about like Vulpix and Ninetales. And in my head, I'm thinking like, oh, you gotta catch them all. I just want to like, oh, dude, that's a Ninetales. It's like, obviously, Pokemon, it's like taking inspiration from all these mythological creatures from Chinese and Japanese lore. But if you see like all these creatures, like you can tell certain references to Pokemon. So I thought that was awesome. All I'm thinking was like, oh, dude, this creature look like Entei from Pokemon, and I just want to throw a Master Ball or something like that just to catch it. You gotta catch them all. I wonder if there's anybody else who probably caught that and once they saw that scene. Uh, then they meet like their aunt, and she's telling a story about like these soul sucking creatures that's behind this sealed wall that their people in the dragon uh pushed back and kept at bay for all this time because they were like dangerously close to breaching outside their because it's kind of like a their areas like outside of in a different dimension kind of thing. So I'm not sure if they were affected by the snap, which was brought up by their friend earlier in the film. I'm not sure if they kind of still because since it's like out just like with Ant-Man, and he was safe from like a chance again snapped away by going to the quantum realm. So it's like since they're like outside of a dimension, similar to like the TVA with in the Loki series, anybody who's not inside the particular dimension where the Avengers are in that universe, they're not affected by the snap because they're outside of that. The stones only work within their own dimension. It's true in the comics. It's true in the MCU. So I don't think they were affected by the snap. I'm not sure if like even Shang-Chi or his friend were affected by the snap at all. It wasn't discussed. Don't really. I guess we don't really need to know. Uh, like it'll be nice information and see if like Mandarin or at least half his forces were affected by the snap and they just came back eventually. Uh, uh, they uh, eventually, rallied their forces, fought back against the Mandarin's forces. But then he got to the sealed door and started like, breaking it down, with the power of the rings. And then Shang-Chi, him fight each other. But then, and this is like a shot and eventually you see this dragon. And in the trailer, I could have sworn they were gonna be introducing Fing Fang Foom because I'm thinking like I know a fair bit about the Mandarin's history, and like the in the comics the rings come from Fing Fang's Foom's because Fing Fang Foom in the comic book history and Marvel history in the comics, they're aliens, but when it came to Earth, people use them as depicted as like if what we think of as like mythological dragons that existed in Earth's history. These are just alien races that came down to Earth, and ancient civilizations just interpret them as being like ancient dragons, mythical creatures, uh, and not aliens. Uh, so I assume like from the trailer, like it's a little head of a dragon. That must be Fing Fang Foom. It's not Fing Fang Foom. It's just like a average dragon that helped beat back these soul sucking creatures. This bigger soul sucking creature, and these like kind of like two giant dragons, and I'm thinking like, they probably pulling straight from kaiju stuff now at this point. So it's like you got Pokemon, kaiju, all these martial arts films all rolled into one. It's like I said, it's like a big love letter from every Asian community, like that influenced pop culture for the longest time, and it's like a kind of, at least personally, I feel like it's like a huge culmination of almost everything. And I thought it was like badass just to see these two dragon things fighting, and Shang-Chi and his sisters just climbing on top of this dragon, and they're just like helping beating this thing down, and Shang-Chi using because he eventually got the rings, being trained by the aunt to utilize the same skills as his mother in order to, outfight his father and take control of his rings. Now, the Mandarin, when he wields the rings, is like a bluish light when they light up, when it's lit up, and it gives off this bluish light. But when Shang-Chi eventually, harnessed them, it gives off this orange glow instead. And uh, eventually, when like that soul sucking dragon tries to attack them, just like a moment, because like there's moments, subtle moments here and there where like Mandarin acting like an actual father to Shang-Chi, and this is like a last moment where it's like, you know, make sure he's, the one thing he, knows, like he's gonna save his son, and he knows like he's done for, and it's like the creature's slowly trying to suck, this semi immortal being's soul, and it's like, you know, as like a mm, like inheritance in a way. It's like, the one thing I can give you right now is these, because in the comics, Shang-Chi, he's like a kind of master combatant in the Marvel universe. Uh, uh, he wields like these these nunchucks created by Tony Stark that kind of like light up like with electricity or something like that, and and obviously they're probably not going to do that exactly, but he got the 10 rings in his possession now, and he used that to like pretty much, you know put these rings down the gullet, down the throat of this soul sucking dragon, and it's like, you know, uh, having a spiral in his stomach, and it's like just completely burst this dragon apart and completely destroying this thing. So there's a nice little couple of credits here. There's a mid credit with Shang-Chi and Aquafina again uh, uh, called upon by Wong, who then has a little meeting between not Professor Hulk. This is actual Bruce Banner. This is like he still has his arm in a sling, so obviously that thing is still not healed up after this whole time. And then Captain Marvel and Wong, after Shang-Chi started using these rings himself, they gave off this kind of big pulse that Wong felt, like I guess a lot of the mystical realm felt, and he's going over like all his the scribes and all these books and stuff in like his magical library, and he doesn't know where these things come from. They're not any kind of magical artifacts that he knows of. Captain Marvel saying like they're not any alien technology that she knows from, and Bruce saying like, well, they're not vibranium or any kind of piece of technology that is like I've witnessed. So nobody from magic, science, or space can confirm where these rings come from. So they're really doing something very different with these rings than it is in the comics. Even though in the comics they're alien technology, but they might be doing something different. They might be connected to Eternals, because Eternals are, in the comics, are older than, like slightly older than, or not older, but like existed for a very long time beyond, certain alien races, because celestials or like even ancient beings, that birth a lot of like universes or worlds, and they the ones who are responsible in the comics of creating the Eternals, the Deviants, and humans, and even and tweak the humans even a little bit, at least some of them, to eventually turn into mutants down the line. But they're responsible for creating the Celestials. I mean the Eternals. So it's possible they're like either celestial technology or eternal technology. Something like the Eternals utilize things that look like a combination of magic, that can easily look like magic, but they kind of like utilize it similar to look like if I could use my like let's say it's like this is like an iPad or something like that, right? Now uh it can like form like in a glowy light formation to make this shape, but I can start like poking at it, like, or at least moving around like I'm using like it like an iPad. It's like that kind of weird combo. And I imagine maybe that the rings are something that they use and somehow they lost, and the Mandarin 1,000 years ago picked them up because these things existed a long. Apparently, to them, existed probably longer than 1,000 years, and he just managed to find them in like apparently a crater or something. Uh, uh, then uh, Captain Marvel had to dip out because she had like some take care of some kind of emergency. So we might see her. Well, definitely see her in Captain Marvel 2, where they will eventually meet Miss Marvel and uh, Monica Rambeau again after the events of WandaVision. But speaking of Miss Marvel, I'm curious if they're going to be touching on Inhumans again, because Miss Marvel is a Inhuman, not a mutant or anything like that. She gained her powers from the Terrigen Mist. So obviously, they probably not going to dwell too hard on Inhumans, but they're going to have to like bring that back in order to have Miss Marvel make sense, because she got her powers from her electricity powers, her stretchy powers, from the Terrigen Mist. So humans have to come back into play eventually, and Hulk. We wonder, like, Bruce obviously is not in Professor Hulk form anymore, so we'll probably see him definitely in the She-Hulk show, or at least it's going to be the Hulk show with She-Hulk included. I forget which is which, but we'll see him again eventually, and it'll be funny. While this is like an Asian dominated kind of movie, Amadeus Cho. There's a character called Amadeus Cho, who's a Chinese American who's also like obviously a Hulk fan, and he's like a very intelligent person who eventually acquired Hulk powers after Bruce trying to stop being a Hulk at some point. I forgot the complete story, but in the comics, there's that. So it'll be kind of interesting to eventually introduce Amadeus Cho as totally awesome Hulk, and obviously we gotta do She-Hulk first, but that'll be like an interesting thing. And then the last end credit thing is even though Shang-Chi said earlier before the movie's end, uh, his sister's supposed to, dismantle their father's organization, but she ended up taking it over, even to the point where it's like it's not only she recruiting females in amongst the warriors to make it equal, but she's like, got like, updating it with technology and doing it so it's not so old fashioned like the father had it. Even like there's certain, graffiti art along the walls and stuff like that. It's completely like revamped. She's revamping it to make it more modern, so far as like, still doing like this, martial arts training and Secret Society of the Ten Rings. She's just, under new management with this. I'm not sure if she's still gonna not only take over, but like still doing evil stuff, but in her own way. And that'd be interesting to see in Shang-Chi 2. It's like, I thought you were going to dismantle the thing, but it's like, no, I'm utilizing this in my own way and selling old scores and, probably like do the whole Deadpool thing, just kill bad guys for profit kind of situation. It'd be like a nice little new storyline for that. But yeah, Shang-Chi is like, it's hard for me to rate it on the scale of what's going on with the MCU now. After a week, maybe like once I let it like marinate a little bit longer, it'd be because it obviously is better. It's personally, I think it's better than even Black Widow, but it's still in like the kind of high mid tier kind of film. It's not to the on the scale like the way like the first Iron Man movie was, maybe not on that height, but I say maybe it's like better than the first Thor movie, and definitely I argue it's probably even better than Guardians of the Galaxy 2 in a way. Uh, so it's like somewhere around that space of like greatness, but it's definitely not low tier at all. This is like an impressive film, highly recommended. It's in the theaters for uh, a handful of weeks before eventually coming to Disney Plus, which you will have to obviously buy like kind of premium access or something like that. But also, when I went to the theater, unlike when I went to go see Free Guy or the Suicide Squad, whereas not that many people there, it wasn't full in this theater, but it was like a good handful more people there in the theater with me than it was the last two movies that I went to in the theater. So it was like there weren't they were focused on the movie obviously, so it wasn't rambunctious because there's kids there, but there was this guy sitting in front of me, and it was like an old guy with like obviously with a cane, some old black guy who had to like get help, because when the ushers had to use his phone light to like help him find his footing until eventually get to the seat. But some point in the movie, this guy sitting there literally on his phone talking on his phone. It's like, having his phone like this and like, yeah. It's like, seriously, man. I was like, and then why do these people have their phones on? They know, like, oh my god, it's like you got no freaking etiquette. It bothers me. Like, why do you do that? Even if you choose to keep your phone on, put it on silent. Don't talk on it because it's distracting. You see like light, flickering amongst the walls, and it's somebody's like utilizing their phone. It's so bothersome. And I know this is like more of like a nitpick than anything else, but if you having like end credits, either speed up the rolling credits or put all the end credits towards the once like the major part of the movie is complete. You want to do like a teaser or at least like some end credits, put it at the end of all that, so that way people won't have to sit through all those credits. But as another thing, I know you want to make sure like like all the people who help make this movie get their name out and everything like that, but if people gotta pee, we want to know what's going on, so either speed up the credits or move the end credits at the beginning before the credits starts rolling, because people want to like find out what's going on, then we can like book it. But then there's another thing. uh uh I'm blanking on what I just want to say. uh People leaving out the as soon as the movie was over, like not over because we still waiting for the end credits. People getting up and stuff and trying to leave, and it's like, guys, I know we've been in a pandemic for a year and we haven't had like a Marvel movie for an entire year after Endgame, but you should know, after 10 years, you should know there's gonna be end credits. Sit your ass down and because the lights ain't come on yet. Why do you think that is? There's an end credits. You should know how this stuff. Even if you haven't seen all the Marvel films, you should see like a good handful of them to know. Or at least if you're with people, they should be like, hey, there's an end credits thing. Let's wait until the thing's over so we can actually see what's coming up. Why are people still getting up? It boggles the mind. It's 10 years. You haven't learned after 10 years. Why do that? It's like I don't get it. I honestly do not get it. People sometimes, and they should know better. Or at least if they're with anybody, they should know better and then inform them. I once brought a friend to see Black Panther to the theater, and I told her like, oh, there's an end credits thing. Sit back and let's see what's going on at the end, kind of thing. It's like that kind of thing. If you've been at these Marvel movies for a handful of times, it's like say, I mean, in case you actually care to know, if you don't want to know, that's a whole nother thing. But I don't know. It's just at this point it feels like like asinine at a certain point. But anyway, that's my spoiler review of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I'm looking forward to the sequel, see what's going on with Captain Marvel, Bruce Banner, and then Doctor Strange. But of course, we got eventually got to see like Eternals, Venom 2, and then Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm looking for Spider-Man No Way Home. It's a nice little bookend of the year, just to wrap up with some nice, like the biggest movie ever, and I'm so looking forward to that. So, thank you for joining me. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Follow me on my Patreon. The link is in the description. And of course, leave a comment below. Let me know what you like about Shang-Chi if you went to see it. Share this video with your friends, of course. And is there anything you didn't like about the film? If there's any, leave a comment below and let me know. And yeah, I will see you guys later for another